right, welcome to Man and Drain. This is episode, what are we on, 39? I think we're on 39. I gotta center myself here because, I really don't have it. Welcome to the podcast. I'm Mox Born again. Kind of got a late edition of Man and Drain for you guys. Lots to talk about. One topic in particular to talk about, which will spring off into a couple different side topics, but I'm really kind of wanting to get this out here. We wanted to talk about this earlier in the week on Monday, like our regular scheduled program slot, but as you well know, life kind of gets in the way. I did get a chance to put on our new border and everything. Got all that made up and fixed up, and everything looks good. Doesn't look like it is changing. Okay, sweet. Okay, so we got our little button, our little tab thing that's changing around. Anyway, we're going to talk about the Dominaria leak. That's going to be the topic of discussion today. It's going to spin off in a couple other discussions as well. And by no means is this any safe place. This is not going to be a safe conversation for a couple different reasons. So if you get offended easily, this probably isn't going to be the show for you. However, on the other hand, if you want to engage in a good dialogue, if you want to have a good conversation, this is the place to go. So we're streaming to Twitch, we're streaming to Mixer for the Xbox folks, and we're also streaming on Facebook Live. So if you guys want to join in the conversation, that's how you do it. For those of you that are on Twitch, twitch.tv/72DPI online, really do appreciate it. Thanks for stopping by. You can definitely join in the chat there. For those of you on Facebook, really appreciate you guys. And then if you're watching on YouTube, youtube.com/72DPI online, later on in the future after this video is posted, make sure you swing by the channel on Twitch. We usually go live on Mondays. Like I said, this week has just been all kinds of nuts, but I didn't want to wait till next Monday to actually put this video out or talk about this, because by then I feel like it's kind of lost its luster. It's already gotten to that point, and it's kind of at the bottom of everybody's shit pile at this point. So I kind of want to get into it. So one of the things that I first off want to preface is Wizards has really got to change some of their structure, right? I don't know if they've looked at looked into how far into these leaks they've looked or whatever, but recently, not this leak in particular, this was a really bad one, but in recent past, there's been issues with their printers, right? Their printers were, people were shady, taking pictures of what they're printing and then posting it to the web. I'm kind of curious if they've looked at, or if Hasbro's looked at, the financial cost of printing their own cards. And the reason why I bring this up is I know it's not going to be a cheap cost or a cheap investment, but that's what you have to look at. It has to be an investment. And this will fix two issues that I believe Wizards has a big problem with. We talked about this on the last podcast. Number one is card stock. They're trying to cut costs wherever they can. I understand that, as far as, do we raise the cost of, MSRP for these packs of cards to $5 to make headway to put better card stock out, or do we leave it at, this price and cut the card stock quality? They chose the latter, going with cheaper card stock, which is in turn causing our cards to curl, and, even worse is the foil cards. Those are curling like almost out of the pack, but the regular cards are actually are curling as well. So that's the first issue that this having your own printer would fix. Like, you could control with a lot more versatility the card stock quality that you're getting. Like, this is something that they could streamline a little bit more. They don't have to rely on a third party vendor. Like I said, obviously it's a huge cost investment. It's not just, it's not a decision made lightly, but in my opinion, there could be a strong argument for going with, in-house printing. The other thing obviously would be there wouldn't be any leaks, right? Because everybody that would be employed at Wizards that runs the printers would be a fireable offense, legal offense, and Boom, there you go. Obviously, it's a legal offense for the third-party vendor. I'm sure they probably lost their job, quite possibly. And I'm hoping the company is going through a lawsuit. I'm not sure about that. But at the end of the day, I think it would be something for them to invest in, or at least investigate to see if it's a possibility, owning your own printer and process, cutting out the middleman like that. It might actually save them money in the long run when you look at like cost of printing and packaging and all that. Who knows? I'm not sure. Just a suggestion, just a topic that I want to talk about. Leave it in the comments below if you're interested in that. So getting into the Dominaria leaks. So we're not going to spoil all the cards or whatever, because all the cards were released on this document. So we're not going to talk about. We're only going to talk about a handful just to kind of get the point across. And kind of go from discussion for there. We're going to actually wait for the preview season to begin, so we'll talk about those cards as they release. So you'll see up on the YouTube channel an actual video for those individual cards or every day during preview season. So what happened? I think it was like March 7th last week. That there was a document that was going around the internet that was basically, it was a Chinese document that had all of the release notes for the set. And people are like, oh my God, this is fake. Oh my God, it's real. Look at all, it's got the entire set of cards in there. Who would take the time to do this? And look at like the changes and things like that. And there were some really questionable translation jobs there. So what did Wizards do the next day? On the 8th, Blake Rasmussen, here, let me pull it up here. He brought out he published a link here on the website, on Magic's website, basically outlining what happened. And first off, they verify that it's true. And within the first 3 sentences of the post, which is fantastic. I'm glad they're like, yeah, it's true, it happens, it sucks, it's terrible, this is the worst thing. Before information gets out earlier than we intended, like clearly they're not happy with this situation. So one of the things that I appreciate as someone that plays the game, someone that pays money to play the game and things like that, is they go ahead and say, you know what, we're going to go ahead and release the actual document in its various languages. That way there isn't any bad information going out, because there's nothing worse than leaked information, and there's nothing worse than bad leaked, like misinformation. So they're going to get out in front of it. They kind of changed. They outlined what they're going to do this week that we're in right now, as far as like releasing articles that were previously set up for next week after the actual official spoiler season started. So they've kind of changed, tried to save face on the forefront and got out in front of this thing. So one of the documents obviously is English, so we click on English. I don't know if I pulled it up. Crap. Let me see if I can add this super quick. Oh, there we go. Snap. So we'll just full screen this one for now. So one of the big things that they're changing here, and this is kind of minuscule for me, but it's a big change in the sense of what they've done in the past. So No War Elves is coming back. This is an awesome card that, from what we've gathered in recent history, they've said that they would never print something like this again. That it's too it's basically reducing costs, right? Wizards always has a problem with this issue, reducing costs. So No War Elves is a single green mana creature. It's a 1/1. It's an elf druid, and it basically adds 1 green mana to your mana pool. Right, that's what it does. So on turn 1, you can play your forest, and you play this, and then on turn 2, you have access to 3 mana, 2 of which is green. So you basically can run out a 3-drop, that has 1 or 2 green mana, or if you have a third color or a second color or whatever, you can drop that land or whatever. But that's one of the key things that they're removing is the phrase mana pool. they are ousting this phrase from the game. So no longer will the card read tap the creature, tap, add green mana to your mana pool. It's just going to read tap, add green. So they're getting rid of the mana pool, which makes me think that there's more rules changes that are going to be affected down the line. One of the huge feel bads of Magic is when you tap something, especially like on an unforgiving stage, kind of like MTG or like on like in a tournament and things like that, where stakes are a little bit higher when you tap something, right, for mana. So like if let's say I tap 4 mana and I only needed 3, just for argument's sake, right? That 4 mana is now in my mana pool. I can use that mana while I'm still in this phase, right? So if it's pre-combat, right? Once I leave that pre-combat main phase, right, I'm done and I want to move to combat, my mana pool empties. So I no longer have any mana in that mana pool. So I can no longer use it. So one of the big feel bads is if I tap 4 mana, add whatever mana to my mana pool, let's say 3 or 4 green, right? I only need 3, and I was like, crap, I shouldn't have tapped that. I really didn't need to. But, I can't use it anymore. So you go to combat, your mana pool empties, now you don't have access. What I'm thinking is going to happen is now that they've removed mana pool from the game, essentially, is we're going to see down in the future set, maybe 2 or 3 sets down the road after the dust settles, they're going to remove that rule. That mana pool is empty at the end of each phase. Instead, they're going to empty at the end of the turn. Right, at the end of your turn, your mana pool is emptied. So, in my opinion, this is my opinion. I have no other reason for believing this, but this is I think where they're going to go with this. Because why else would you remove mana pool from a card? And the thing is, on a card like this, No War Elves, this in the document, this is where they decided to put this note in here, right? So it's not like it's a space saving option, right? It's not going to be something like, oh, there's so much text on this card, we can't possibly put it all onto the 2x3 card, so we need to remove this text, right? We have to remove it. No, you really don't. It literally says tap, add green to your mana pool. Mana pool is a concept that has been around since the beginning of Magic. And taking this away is taking away that idea of, okay, when you tap a card, that adds mana to your mana pool, you're going to this special, the mana is going to this special place where then you can use it for casting spells, using other abilities and things like that. Now just adding green, like it's almost too simplistic, in my opinion. And we all know Magic is a complex game, so anywhere that they can make it more simplistic is for the better, but I feel like this is going way too far. And no, I don't believe that this is a place, for saving, those 2 words, mana pool, I don't think is saving them any space on cards that are relevant, right? Most cards that add mana to your mana pool are not a paragraph long. I mean, there's a few of them that are, and those are the ones that say, when you sacrifice a card, you gain mana equal to its converted mana cost added to your mana pool or whatever. So, in my opinion, it's not a good change. It really dumbs down the game a little bit, and it takes away a vital portion of the game. And it makes me feel like they're going to change this rule down the road and make the game more simplistic and more Hearthstone-esque. So that's the first change. So No War Elves is back. I'm really excited. First off, I'm really excited that it's coming back. I hope it gets new artwork. And it's going to make Eli's Dino deck that much better. We might actually cut white altogether and make it a green-red aggro deck. This additional mana dork is, a great addition to the deck. Yeah, the 1-drop white one that is a 0/3 might be a better blocker. It certainly survives a lot better when it comes to, creature for creature when it's compared to the No War Elves. However, playing with No War Elves, you can really do some dumb stuff on turn 3. So we might with the release of Dominaria, we might see a shift in that deck from 3-color Naya, the white, red, green, to just dual color green, red, going more aggro than anything. So we'll see. We'll see. Because we got to look at like our removal package and things like that, because a lot of those cards are white. And hopefully we get some. I didn't read. I'm not going to read any other spoilers on here. So you're safe to continue watching. We will not be spoiling anything else. The other change, and this is where it gets a little spicy. The other change that they're doing to the game is they're removing the phrases that include he or she. Okay, so they're gonna start adding they as a preferred third person singular pronoun for players, replacing he or she. So, for example, Hermit Explorer. Here's kind of like the context for you guys. When it enters the battlefield, target player puts the top 4 cards of their library onto their graveyard. Okay, so he or she has always been a part of Magic, just like the mana pool. He or she has always been part of Magic. That's how it's always been. They don't tell us why they're making this change, right? In the document, at least. They don't tell us why. There is no description within the document here. Okay? So we're led to our own devices. We're led to figure out why we're doing this, why they're doing this. And your very first thought, and this is always where we go, because we've been trained to think this way, is the text block on Magic cards. There is a finite number of words that you can put on that square, right? You can't put infinite information on there. So words are expensive. The real estate is very expensive there. So the first place you go is always, well, they did the change because they need to save space on cards. And the phrase he or she is 3 words, and they is 1 4-letter word. So that would be, that's a great change. You're saving space. You're condensing it down. It does sound a little bit better. If you want to justify it like that, that's perfectly fine. But then, you kind of search a little bit more and find out, like, hey, they really didn't make this change to save space. Because usually the first person, the biggest proponent of this is Mark Rosewater, and he's always the one that says, we're making changes like this to save space on cards and stuff like that. I just don't buy it. And part of the reason why I don't buy it is this gentleman here, Lee Sharpe, works for Magic. He works on the digital production. He's a digital production manager for Magic Arena, which is their new up-and-coming killer for the Magic Online app that is yet to be released and is just god-awful trash fire in a can, essentially. But that's a whole other story. But so Lee Sharpe came out the exact same day that they released the changes for Magic and this whole leak thing or whatever, the document that we just discussed. So now, and this is what he tweets out. So now that the cat's out of the bag, I'm really glad we're changing he or she to they. Hopefully non-binary players feel more welcome in the game. So now we know why they made the change, right? This is the only information that we have about this change, right? There is no, I searched Mark Rosewater's tweets for from the 8th until present, not a peep about changing he or she to they, right? So we have to take this at face value. We have to say, like, okay, this is, yes, he doesn't speak for Magic, but he works for Magic, and he's, this is the only information we have to go on as far as why the change was made, right? Because they're Wizards is always the first ones to come out saying, oh, they're trying to save space, and like they haven't said that yet. So we're only able to conclude that this is why they made it. I want to believe that they made it for the right reasons, but the problem with this phrase, with what Lee is talking about here, is this is less than 1% of the Magic community, of the people that play Magic, that this change affects is less than 1%, right? Over the past, what is it, the past 3 or 4, it goes back to Theros. So over the past 5 sets, we've been seeing this culture shift from traditional Magic into this dumbed down social justice warrior issue game that has been taking our beloved game of 25 years and turning it on its side to appease a small number of people. And it's frustrating. Like, I don't, they're always speaking about, it needs to be all about inclusion, and everybody needs to make sure that they have someone to look at to play the game. But when you look at it, the majority of your players are white males in their 30s. Why are we pandering to the 1%? Why are we bending the knee to the 1%? Why? It's turning Magic into what it's not. This is not why I play Magic. I do not play Magic for PC, making sure everybody's comfortable, making sure everybody has a safe space. And, I've never been to an F&M. I've never been to a tournament where there's been issues with people not feeling included, like changing the artwork and the art style to in the diversity in Magic to pander to these less than 1%ers to make sure they feel included. Like, that's not why people play this game. People play this game because it's complex, it's engaging, and there's so many different ways to play it. Everything from different formats, like you've got EDH, you've got Standard, you've got Draft, you've got Modern, Legacy, you've now got Pauper. There's even newer formats coming out, at every so often. So there, you've got that way to play the game. You can create the deck based on how you want to play the game. There are thousands of cards to choose from and formats that you can play with, and then you've also got kitchen table Magic. So you can express yourself through your deck. We don't need to be able to have to read the card, say that level of, political correctness is not beneficial. Like, it's just telling people how we should view, and how just to make sure that everybody feels included, and it's not accomplishing that. There was never a problem with this. When people say he or she, like, well, I don't identify as either one of those. I'm not included. Okay. But you were at one point, like, you were born a he or she. Like, I don't want to get into this topic, I really don't. But I feel very strongly about Magic's heritage and where it came from and how different it's going to be going forward. And I'm not, I'm not saying that, this change couldn't have been implemented. I think it's being implemented for the wrong reasons. So, at any rate, so that's another change that we're going to contend with. So, for the people out there that want to be a purist as far as Magic is concerned, when you see the word they, just read he or she. Just read he or she. And to be honest with you, that's what you should do, because that's how the game was, and I just, Lee Sharpe, come on, dude. Get with the program. There was another change that I wanted to talk about, but I can't remember what it was. That's okay. Yeah, I'm trying to think what it was. Oh, man, this is why I need an outline in front of me. That's all right. So we're going to go, we did get a spoiler yesterday or a couple days ago, an official spoiler for a Magic set. Oh, this is the change that I want to talk about. The new card type. Sorry, guys. It's 12:36. We're still going strong, though. We'll get this finished. So you're looking at the new card type. This is a enchantment saga. So it's a new type of enchantment. And let's talk about how the card plays, and then we'll kind of break down what it looks like and how that all that here. So you're looking at Phyrexian Scriptures. It's 2 black, 2 generic, mythic rare, and essentially what happens is when you play it, you pay 4, right? Play this card, and so it's got reminder text at the very top. It says, as this saga enters, and after your draw step, add 1 lore counter, sacrifice after 3. So that jumbled up bunch of words right there, which enters what? Enters the they're talking about entering the battlefield. So again, we're trying to save space. You can see here how this text box is super tiny, right? And so they had to cut words. So enters is meaning entering the battlefield, not entering your graveyard, not entering your hand, entering the battlefield. You get a counter. So you play this, you get a counter. 1 counter, it triggers and says put a +1/+1 counter on up to 1 target creature. That creature becomes an artifact in addition to its other types. So if it's a black creature, it's now a black artifact creature. So you pass a turn comes back to you, you draw a card. So you draw your card, and then this triggers again. So you will add another token or another lore counter. This then triggers this ability: destroy all non-artifact creatures. So in theory, if you are playing a non-artifact creature deck, you now have basically wrathed every other creature besides the one that would receive the +1/+1, because now it's an artifact creature. It's an even slower Wrath of God. Like they see it coming, so they get an opportunity to destroy the enchantment, or remove a counter, or whatever, however they feel like dealing with this. So it's a slower version of Wrath of God, like a super slow sorcery. That's a permanent. And then you pass the turn, so all creatures are dead except for your 1 or any artifact creatures like ornithopters and things like that, for example. So you pass a turn. Turns coming back to you. You draw your card, and then you put a counter on here, and it says exile all cards from all opponents' graveyards, and then this gets sacrificed. So it's an interesting card. On its face, like functionality is an interesting card because it's super slow, right? For 4 mana, killing all creatures. We're usually used to that at sorcery speed, where you cast it and you have to cast it on your turn. You can't cast it in response to something. You cast it, and then they have a single opportunity to counter it, right then and there. If they don't counter it, then all the creatures are dead. This instance, this Phyrexian Scriptures, is, like I said before, is kind of like an even slower sorcery spell, right? You cast it, they get an opportunity to counter it. If they don't have a counter spell, it hits the battlefield, and it doesn't quite kill everything yet, and then it will trigger the next time you draw a card on your draw step. So you can't even cheat the drawing cards, right? So like it says that it's, what would make these cards a little bit more potent would be if it was after you draw your next card. So so it would trigger on your next draw step, or if you have a card that lets you draw cards, you could effectively trigger this multiple times in one turn. They probably tested that. It probably was broken. But you never know. If they didn't, they didn't. We don't know these things because we don't get the notes on these cards at all. Or the testing results or anything like that. But I'd be interested to see if that had changed. The next time you draw a card, add a lower counter. Being able to trigger this on, that would make it a little bit more competitive. So this card is basically turn 4 or turn 5 Wrath, right? Turn 4, do this. Turn 5 Wrath the board. I do enjoy the fact that it's exiling all cards from your opponent's graveyards, so it's not exiling all your stuff. Your stuff is dying, so this would be good in a reanimator deck. It's nice that it doesn't just exile all creature cards; it gets their entire graveyard. So I give the card. I mean, on face value, out of 10, the card probably gets like a 6. It's just really slow. But if you can get this down on turn 3, then you're looking at least getting, the wrath effect on turn 4, but the all-in-one inclusiveness of the destroying all creatures and then getting rid of all their cards the next turn might be actually worth the issue. Hey, what's going on, Grows? How you doing, man? We're talking about some Magic cards here, and just now getting into the Phyrexian scriptures here and kind of talking about that. But so I kind of want to hear what you guys think. Is it too slow because turn 4 I feel like I should be able to wrath the board, or is the added bonus of being able to exile their creatures exile all their cards on the next turn worth the wait and worth the inclusion of this extra card? Because normally that would be a separate card, right? You'd play a wrath card for 4, wrath their board, and then on turn 5 you'd play a card that would remove their cards from the graveyard. In a perfect world. So like I said, I'm looking at on a scale of 1 to 10, probably about a 6. I think what would make it over the top for me is if this phrase right here after your draw step was whenever you draw a card, add a lore counter. Being able to trigger this on multiple times a turn would make it that much better, that much more competitive. I think for sure this will definitely be a huge staple in EDH decks, just because of the politics of EDH. So it might make you a target. It might. You never know, depending on how late you play the game or play this. So. All right, so let's talk about the templating of this game. I'm not really a big fan of it. Whenever they turn things on its side, I'm not a big fan of the split cards and things like that. I just don't feel like. I feel like the traditional, and I'm kind of going back to what we talked about earlier, the traditional Magic card. I'm kind of a purist when it comes to that. When they screw with the templating, it makes the cards not look like Magic cards. This was a huge outcry when they had the invocations for the last Master or the last Amonkhet series. They're like, oh my God, these are supposed to look really pretty and really something that collectors were wanting to grab and get a hold of, but they just look god awful. So the vertical text box and the vertical art box just don't do the cards justice, right? I don't know how many cards they're going to be. Like I said, I didn't look at the entire spoiler and kind of decipher everything, but the horizontal picture, the horizontal text box just looks so much cleaner. I think the correct version of this saga type of card would have been going back to the level up mechanic, right? And the thing is, maybe they shrunk the picture box down, a little bit, kind of like if you look at Jace the Mind Sculptor versus the other Planeswalkers, his art box is slightly smaller because he has 4 abilities. Same thing for the other four ability Planeswalkers. Their text box is slightly larger and their art box is slightly smaller, giving them more room. I think that is a more acceptable answer than this. It's just one of those things, and I think the reason why, and I want to hypothesize why they theorize why they did it this way, is when you hold. I don't have any cards in front of me. Shoot. Hold on one second. All right, so when you hold cards, right? When you hold cards in your hand, traditionally with Magic cards, you can't read the text box, right? You have to actually go through and pull a card at the top or separate them or whatever. So with this card, you can actually, if you hold your cards out wide enough, you'll be able to read portions of that text box, right? So I can see why functionally they did it that way, but just from traditional Magic layout and traditional templating for cards, this just doesn't work. It just doesn't look good versus the rest of your cards, the rest of your set. So I'm kind of interested to see what you guys think. Comments like on these things are just kind of all over the place, and it's kind of like with the masterpieces, right? There were some people like, oh my god, this is amazing, and not just the Amonkhet ones, but all the other ones going back to the very first masterpiece set releases. There seems to be two sides of the story. So I'm kind of curious what you guys think. Leave a comment down below. Leave a comment on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/72DPI online. I really want to hear what you guys think. Is this type of card, do you enjoy this type of thing? It's a new way to play the game. Or not a new way to play the game. A new type of card to play with. It's definitely going to give us, some known information when it comes to how the game's being played out, versus like if you took out the words your draw step and put in there next time you draw a card, there would be a lot of unknown information, right? Because like you could put this down on turn 4 and the person would be like, well, I gotta have a counter spell, but I also have a destroy enchantment card. Should I risk waiting and keep my counterspell for something that's not an enchantment, or should I use the specific card like enchantment destruction to take care of this enchantment, right? Because the counterspell would be a catch-all. So like if you countered a creature with that spell, you wouldn't be able to deal with that creature with the destroy enchantment. So at the end of the day, the unknown information is what makes Magic competitive. And that's one of the things that this type of card and that type of phrasing kind of spits in the face of. So, I don't know. I kind of want to hear from you guys. I'm really kind of curious. I'm glad that Magic or that Wizards got out in front of this, and kind of owned up to, oh crap, the leak was bad. And they did the right thing by releasing these documents for the public to see. Again, we're not gonna go into spoiler season and go full bore and take out all these spoilers just from this text document. We're actually gonna wait for the official spoiler season so we can pull up the cards on Mythic Spoiler and kind of go through the cards single by single and kind of give them a rundown. So look forward to that. Really appreciate you guys watching in Twitch and also on Facebook Messenger, and then on our stream on Mixer. Make sure you head over to youtube.com/72DPI online to get subscribed, leave us a comment, and make sure you share the video and things like that, so let other people know that we are here and talking about Magic. We also have some video game podcasts, and this week has been nuts, guys. So like the whole schedule is thrown off. We'll be able to do a Laundry Day stream tomorrow. But the Ball and Chain podcast, we have some really good topics to talk about with gun violence and video games, and that whole conversation again. I really want to have that conversation, but Angel actually was working tonight, and she's also working tomorrow night with her photography business, so we won't be able to get to that. I'm gonna try to book her. Maybe I'll book her for a photo shoot, and say, hey, I'm going to pay you to come down and podcast with me, so you can't schedule anything else. So I was looking to do that tentatively for Friday, but we should be next week back to our regular schedule. So Mana Drain will be on Monday. Tuesday will be 8-Bit, which we're getting pretty far in Spyro. Wednesday will be Ball and Chain podcast. Thursday will be the Laundry Day stream. Friday will be off, and then we'll continue back in that fashion. So I appreciate you guys' patience and understanding. Thanks for watching again. And as always, have a great evening, and we will talk to you guys next week.